Life is more than random events that happen to us from one day to the next. We're caught up in a story, one that God has been writing from the beginning of time. Stories of darkness and light, brokenness and redemption. They show us who He is and how much He loves us. They're the stories of our lives, and if we let Him, He'll use them for His glory.
Sign language is my first language. Mom and Dad are deaf and never really knew at a young age what that meant for me. It was just, my parents are deaf, Other kids' parents are their parents and they're this or that, and my parents were just deaf. I didn't think there was anything different necessarily. We have 2 biological boys, and through some health problems that they experienced, realized that we probably shouldn't have any more biological kids, and that really accelerated our plans for adoption. And so we began that 3-year journey, and God led us to a beautiful little girl who was deaf from Peru. And so we adopted her into our family, and going into that, found out that she had some other health problems. She was diagnosed with what's called ataxia. Essentially, that's a disease that just took its toll on her muscles. She came home walking, and within 8 or 9 months began to really struggle. Had already struggled with that, but it got worse to the point she didn't want to walk anymore. We had in-home nursing that was granted to us a few hours a day. It was through that they discovered the need for her to have some breathing support. And then that continued, and then the week of Thanksgiving of 2020, she began to really express fear that she would die. She had sort of this reckoning, so to speak, where she recognized that her body was failing her. And we began to talk then about, well, what does that mean? What does God tell us? What does Jesus' story mean for you? And she essentially got to the point where she recognized that she needed to acknowledge her sin and accept Christ as her Savior, which she did a couple days before Thanksgiving. And what was really special, as hard as that was to have that conversation with your own child about their fear of dying and realizing that their body is failing them, it changed from I'm going to die one day to I'm going to go to heaven one day. Through lots of conversations, March and April and May of 2021, we began to realize that Eden was essentially, she was telling us she's ready to go home to heaven. And so through prayer and because of her diagnosis, she was considered actively dying, is the term that they used. We honored her desire. And before we could even tell her that we were going to do that on a given Sunday, she made her desire known quite demonstrably that she was ready and that she did not want to go back on the machine after a routine, bathing and so on. And so when we told her, okay, we're going to allow your body to do what it was going to do, she then began to be excited and ready to see Jesus. And so she died 6 days after that. And we're just grateful for how God walked through us, journeyed with us through that time. And so our heart's desire and how God has led us into ministry is to be a part of helping deaf people know Jesus. There are 70 million deaf people in the world. Well over 90% of deaf kids are born to hearing parents. And the sad fact is that many times, even in America, those parents don't learn sign language. We believe that deaf people are the finish line of the Great Commission, essentially. They're a subculture of any culture where they are. And so we believe that Revelation 7, 9, and 10 talks about all the tribes, nations, and tongues that are going to be around the throne, and deaf people are included in that. My daughter's there right now, and we want deaf people all around the world to know that same peace that our daughter knew in the days and months leading up to her passing.